the 201st Block Talks, we speak with Ismael Hishon-Rezaizadeh, co-founder and CEO of Lagrange Labs, who tells us his journey from investor to founder. I'm your host, Mauricio Magaldi, and this is Blockdrops, your weekly digest on blockchain for business. These news are not a form of endorsement, sponsorship, or encouragement for consumption, and are meant for educational purposes only. All right, everybody, I'm here with Ismael, and I'm not going to say his last name because it's super hard. You'll say it. Ismael, welcome to Block Talks.
Thank you so much for having me, Mauricio. So I'm one of the founders of Lagrange Labs. We are a company that focuses on the intersection of AI and zero-knowledge proofs. We build a proprietary library called DeepProve, which is the fastest ZK machine learning library in the space by a very wide margin. And we work with many of the largest companies across AI and AIX crypto. We announced a massive partnership very recently with NVIDIA and have other massive partnerships coming out very soon. At the core, we're a company that builds technology that brings trust and safety to AI using zero-knowledge proofs.
And you were telling me before we started, you recently launched a token. I want to explore that with you. But before that, I want to learn how you got into blockchain, crypto, ZK. What's your previous story and how you found it and what made you want to work in this space?
Yeah. So I was a venture investor prior to starting Lagrange. And I worked for a Web2 venture fund where we deployed very heavily into early stage software companies. I've always found crypto to be probably the largest untapped frontier for building impactful net new businesses. Before venture, I was an engineer and I led digital asset strategy for a very large TradFi company. For me, I wanted to be a founder. Having invested in early stage companies, I had thought it would be a lot more fun to be on the building side again. So went and founded Lagrange several years ago, 3 years ago at this point. One of the first people to join was our chief scientist, Babis Papamonthu, who chairs the cryptography department at Yale and leads our research team. And we've built a fantastic team with a number of great researchers renowned in applied cryptography and computer science, and have built what is in many ways the most performant from independent benchmarks by about 3 orders of magnitude, 1000x zero-knowledge machine learning system in the space.
Wow, that's quite a lot, quite a mouthful as well. In that particular sense, and we here at the Block Drops, we love use cases. So I will have to probe you on what are the most obvious, and then maybe some non-obvious applications of this that you're building. I keep repeating myself that AI needs blockchain, and I'm a true believer on that. I invest in this space. I also work in ZK. So what are the things that in terms of that area you've seen, okay, this is absolutely something that we have to solve for, and that's why we're pursuing this. And then probably you build for builders, they take your technology elsewhere and make it better. So what's the story there in terms of use cases and what unlocks you were able to achieve?
Yeah. So I would say transparently, the use cases of adding ZK to AI really is just a use case of AI in general, right? There isn't a place that you're using AI that you wouldn't put a premium on safety, verifiability, and privacy. And so what ZK lets you do is to take these applications wherever they sit and to make them more secure. And so we find a lot of demand in things like healthcare, medicine, aerospace defense, all the way through to TradFi, enterprise AI usage, and even, obviously our largest go-to-market is crypto. Wallet companies, DeFi companies, all of these generally want more verifiability of the use of AI if they are trying to augment their existing services with it. Any security conscious setting, which is everything in crypto and most things in high value traditional businesses, use AI now. And the only way to ensure that the AI operates in a way that is safe, verifiable, and transparent is to use zero knowledge proofs.
I totally subscribe to that. Absolutely. In terms of you mentioned Def AI, can you elaborate on that? Because I covered on the regular episodes, but I don't think I've ever interviewed anyone who has a first hand on that space.
Yeah. So, obviously we don't build Def AI. We just work with a lot of companies that do, but, it's an area that I'm personally very excited about. Def AI probably is one of the largest frontiers right now for really high impact net builders to create things that are useful. And so, DeFi has historically been kind of trapped in a kind of current generation bubble where there's a bunch of lending apps, there's a bunch of dexes, there is a large number of yield aggregators that effectively use very simplistic mechanisms that can be codified in Solidity or whatever the execution environment language is on a given chain. But DeFi is the concept of taking AI and using that to augment and make more performant the underlying financial instruments that are on chain. So, a very straightforward application is yield aggregators. Um, so, how can you more efficiently rebalance on chain positions? How can you have, quantitative driven hedge funds and trading strategies that are on chain that are accessible for a broad user base? And then you also have the concept of sovereign agents, so agents that own their own funds and balances and can transact and remit payments accordingly. So there's a lot of great use cases, and it's an area that I'm personally very excited about.
And one of the things that I think we're seeing is a lot of the regulatory, I want to say regulatory accommodation, to lack of a better word. Um, this is obviously prominent in crypto, and there are some fronts in AI. You're operating on both. How do you read the scenario right now in terms of enablement or maybe challenges that are upcoming from both sides of this kind of intersection?
Very broadly speaking, the opportunity set of AI in crypto is larger than probably any emerging technology in crypto. And the opportunity set of applying ZK to AI is equally large. It's really how can you take the existing applications of AI that we have today and add substantial amounts of additional verifiability to it. And so the applications in many cases are enumerable. And the way that we decide what to pursue is simply based on where there is the highest degree the lowest degree of price sensitivity to security. So where are users willing to pay the highest premium on security today? And as ZK comes cheaper and cheaper, it becomes easier to basically price discriminate into more use cases.
Interesting. Are regulators a hurdle or an enabler when you think about both crypto and AI and the blend of them? And I know we're changing a lot over the last, I don't know, 6 months, maybe a year, in different jurisdictions. Obviously, Europe has specialized in regulation, apparently. Other countries are less so, probably more innovation driven. But it is a different in scenario that has maybe, you know, and I don't want to underestimate the power of good regulation. I don't think that that's what I'm trying to imply, but no regulation or too much regulation are also not the greatest combination, especially in mixing two different emerging techs. So, what's your reading of the scenario? Do you engage with regulators? Do you not? Do you take up more of a backseat? What's the type of challenge or even approach you have applied more recently, if you can comment on in those two spaces?
Yeah. So we don't overtly engage with regulators. Just our business doesn't necessarily require that right now. We are a fundamental research company that pursues technology that's broadly applicable to AI, irrespective of the regulatory environment. That being said, I do think that regulation broadly is very beneficial for companies that sell privacy. I think we've empirically seen that the average consumer is not willing to put as high a price on their own privacy as a government is willing to put on their citizens' privacy. And so, things like the CCPA in California and GDPR in Europe kind of are a landmark regulation that several years ago has pushed forward new standards in consumer privacy. And I think we're going to continue to see that relevant to AI. And we're going to continue to see an increasing number of cases where governments are pushing for more regulation of how AI can process and handle user data. And ZK being a technology that adds privacy and adds guarantees of user privacy to AI systems is going to find very natural PMF as that progresses. But even if not, right, there is still a massive market of adding verifiability in places where privacy is just opt-in for enterprise, right? Privacy over customer data, privacy over financial data, all of these things, even in an opt-in privacy society, still have tremendous markets.
There are potentially ways to fend off this kind of almost like a land grab that AI has had on data in general, but personal data, obviously. Um, I just saw that Midjourney is being sued by, I think, Universal and Disney on the basis of using proprietary um, IP. Um, what's your or Lagrange's kind of approach to these? Is there a rewarding mechanism? If I am willing to put my data through Lagrange for consumption, is I mean we're talking about just now for retail, but I'm an individual, but about my IP on whatever on my band or whatever. What's your approach to that? Because I think people, and that's the whole AI needs blockchain that I've been playing with for a while, is we never knew we could be paid for the data that we own because there were no mechanisms. We were incentivized to share data willy nilly in exchange for very questionable services, and we became the product. And now there is enough tech in the world, like the one you were working with, that can maybe try to claw that back a little bit and allow me to decide, yeah, I want to be rewarded by offering whatever data that I own to this particular service. What's the motto there in your mind, and how are you guys tackling, if you're tackling that?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, we focus on zero knowledge proofs. We build zero knowledge proofs. So there's no network and data gathering. We simply build a mathematical technology similar to how AI is a mathematical technology, but we build mathematical cryptography that is highly relevant in a business context to a large set of customers in AI. But at the end of the day, we don't have a network. We're not taking data. We're not doing all this stuff that a bunch of protocols are trying to do right now. That's why a lot of our customers are ranging everything from large enterprise AI companies in Web 2 all the way to obviously crypto companies that want to use our tech. But, you know, I would say that the space of ZK machine learning and what we tackle as a business is actually a lot larger than people often give it credit for. So the first library that we launched, DeepProve, handles verifiable inference. But more broadly speaking, we generally think that ZKML encompasses things like verifiable training, privacy preserving training, proofs of interpretability, proofs of explainability, um, that we are going to continue to see be relevant as models need to be trained in ways that prove properties about them. So you can eventually, with ZKML and the work that our team does, prove that a model wasn't trained over some specific input set. You'll be able to prove that there's a fairness property of the model, right? The model doesn't have inherent biases and discriminations, and there's if someone's incriminating a model, there's the ability for the model to defend the property of it. And so I think that type of thing starts becoming very relevant to the cases you're talking about with Midjourney, where the data that's being used to train these things is black boxes now, and there's genuine IP issues.
Yeah, yeah, and I think until we can establish a data layer with proofs and whatnot, that can fend off this inherited habit of these companies to land grab data, I think we'll see a lot of this uh, litigation coming about from large IP holders, smaller IP holders, and that obviously hinders a lot of the actual technology evolution or the application of such innovation. Let me switch to the process in which you were describing yourself as an earlier investor and then went back into being a founder and an operator and a builder. what are the portable skill sets, and what were the things that you had to kind of master as you transitioned into a builder, in terms of like your frame of mind, your framework for priority, and what were those changes, and what were the things that you actually ported back in?
Yeah, one of the hardest things as a founder is that I often see founders struggle with is being able to play every part of running a business, right? You have a lot of very good product founders. You have a lot of very good capital market people who try to be founders. You have a lot of very good venture investors who are good at evaluating early stage companies and narratives and theses that run companies. But the nature of being a founder means you have to be very aggressive at effectuating on an execution strategy and then be very correct in directionally the approach that your business is taking. So you need to be a bit of a venture investor, a bit of a liquids markets person, a bit of a product person, and also be very technical. And so it's a very interdisciplinary skill set. And so there's a ton of stuff that, like, I've learned from doing venture that are very applicable to running Lagrange. And there's a ton of stuff that I've had to learn on the way. Like, there's no equivalent of launching a token that an early stage venture investor like learns. Like you're if you're investing at Series A, you're lucky if one of these things hits IPO, and so you're not like learning about trading strategies and treasury management strategies. And so a lot of founders get stuck there, right? And you see a lot of founders get stuck at the earlier stages of venture raising. They're just great product people, but they don't know how to do venture. And you see a lot of people who are good at the other two can't get anything built because they have no capacity to engineer or architect a roadmap. And so, you learn a little bit from all of this stuff. So my career as an engineer, my career as a venture investor, my career in TradFi, those have all been incredibly beneficial as I was developing into the correct path to start Lagrange. And so I always recommend for every founder in the space to spend as much time as possible targeting as many different problems as possible. And then they'll learn and be able to develop, and they'll be much better at executing.
I love that. um, in terms of challenges, because you're operating in such a specific intersection of technologies, what are the, I don't know, top three challenges you face both in building and running Lagrange that might have presented you with new learnings, and enable you to overcome them, and that you can maybe suggest to, or exemplify how hard it is to build in that intersection?
Yeah. So I mean, I think every stage, right? Like I think the it's very hard to run a business that gets liquid very quickly. And it creates a bunch of these weird externalities in crypto that we don't see in other industries. Um, because you have the ability for the broader market to price your relative contribution to it prior to your business having time to mature into, a large revenue generating enterprise, the same way you would in traditional markets, right? So like, you know, Lagrange from the first fundraise to token generation, that was 2.5 years approximately. And a lot of investors consider that slow. But in a traditional market, you're looking from first fundraise to IPO is like 7 to 10 years. So the timelines in crypto are very rapidly condensed. And that means that like you have a very unique problem set because employees get liquid with these very large numbers on papers very quickly. And so you have to manage expectations on a team and a company, right? You have capital market issues that have to be resolved very early in a company's life, the way you wouldn't traditionally do. Because like a Series A company in software has to effectively grow its revenue, grow the headcount against revenue, and then fundraise against growth in revenue with hopefully great cohort and great user metrics. Um, but that's so different than crypto, where you just have all these very hard to predict heuristics you're trying to hit that are ill defined and are very condensed. And so, you just have to, I think, be very adaptable. Um, and so for us, like we've targeted a lot of things in ZK across our business's history, all the way from state proofs to co-processing to interop. And now, obviously, we're laser focused, the entire team, 9 people with PhDs, 2 professors, laser focused on zero knowledge machine learning. And that has been, the best thing that we've done, but it's also required us to adapt. The market for ZK machine learning was zero 3 years ago when Lagrange was first accepted. And now it's the largest market in ZK by a very wide margin. And we're the team with the fastest approver and the largest research team pursuing it. And so, adaptability in the face of a very dynamic and fast changing and ill defined market, I think, is one of the hardest things that we've had to struggle with and hopefully overcome.
It's very interesting because there's also this correlation between the token price and the value of the technology in crypto, which are very rarely compatible. Like the fluctuation you can get from the price of a token is by many orders of magnitude more volatile than the actual value can extract from the technology. We see this on what people say ghost chains, is because there's a token that's moving sideways with some reasonable, on-chain activity, but there's no hype on the token. And some others that have virtually no actual activity, you see the token being mentioned everywhere, and there's, the team is hiring and firing and doing, all sorts of events and all that, which I can only assume is a hit on the founders as well, because there is this proxy of value or competency associated with something, as you said, it's ill-defined and completely removed from the actual value you can extract from a piece of technology. So that absolutely, I think, adds the stress. You nodding, yes, adds the stress for
Yes,
this.
very much so.
In light of that, and this is something that I started asking my guests this year, um, stressful industry is 24/7, large volumes, a lot of hype, a lot of press and all. How do you keep yourself centered, healthy? Do you have any habits, any routines? Like I want to kind of double click a little bit on like how do you keep yourself sane?
I think you just gotta work out and run the business. I mean, I think that's the best way to do anything. You look at a lot of the people who run highly stressful things. You spend all day doing this like very intellectually taxing work, and then you just gotta go to the gym and hit some weights. That's how I think the best way to do it is. But it's tough. It's a very very hard market to operate in, and I think staying healthy as a founder is very important.
Yeah. Do you have any particular routine, like sleep or diet or any modality you prefer? Like I had somebody here. I think they run. I think runners are psychopaths. So there, I said it. They run like marathons like every other month, and I'm like, no, thank you. I don't like that. What's your end of that particular spectrum?
I'm not a runner. We have runners in the team. I like lifting weights. I've always enjoyed that. It's always been my hobby. But I think the running, I just can't do it. It's just too much.
Yeah, I had Ari Redboard from TRM on the show, and he has the TRM running club, and I'm like, no. No, he's like, oh, you have to join us in an event in a conference somewhere, and we're gonna run. And I'm like, hell no. I'll have breakfast with you after you're back, but I'm not running at all. Absolutely not. Um, you've been at the very edge of innovation in an industry that is already innovative, right? So um, how do you onboard people? Do you have friends who refuse to believe in crypto, and now that they're seeing that you're doing something meaningful, they're like, huh, Ismael, I want to learn. Can you onboard me to crypto? Oh, Bitcoin hit a new all-time high. Can you onboard? Like, what's your story to them? Do you send them home and like, don't talk to me because you're a detractor? Or do you onboard them like, hey, I'll let you know?
I never had that. Like I've always, a lot of my friends have always been excited about crypto. Like crypto's gone through so many bull runs at this point. Like people know it's gonna probably go back up. Like goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up. And so like the people who are like very retail, most of them who I know, they're like, oh yeah, like just wait till it crashes again, and then it's like, oh wait till it goes back up again. Like I don't know anyone who's like maybe some capital, like some traditional markets people I know are like really short on crypto, but I'd say like the broader like base of people I know are like pretty bullish.
You're in a crypto bubble. You're absolutely in a crypto bubble.
Yeah, but like crypto bubble, but it's also like you walk down the street in New York, right? And you're like, what do you ask a bunch of 20 something year old guys what they think of crypto, or even 20 something year old girls, depending on the industries and the walks of life that they're in, and say, what do you think about crypto? And most of them will go, yeah, I like that stuff, right? Like adoption rates we're pretty high, especially when you look at like the cohort of people who like the age range of most founders and demographics that most founders operate in.
True. I had someone on the show recently, and they said that they're no longer building for boomers or Gen Xers because they are on the way out. And I'm like, thank you. Oh, that felt great for me. But you're right. There is a more of a crypto native generation breaking in the market, and building for them is probably a good bet in this day and age. Looking into more of the industry, and I think we've explored a little bit of your take on the regulation and on the more of the technical side. But what's the one thing as an industry, not as a company, but as a wider industry, do you feel that we need to fix right now to avoid, say, working another 20 years in the industry and then looking in hindsight like, oh shit, we didn't do this, we didn't fix that thing, and now we're back at the same place? What's the one thing and why?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing we have to fix is that there really is a bunch of vaporware projects that don't build anything meaningful. And there's a bunch of people who generally try to build like low innovation forks of each other and then launch tokens on those because they want to beta trade. And there's like this obsession in crypto of like the pair trade and the beta trade, where like everything is going to trade, along some corollary with the market leader in some category. And so it's like people will just fork some nonsense and then launch it in a year and say, here you go. It should be like, Ondo is worth 10 billion. So my crappy fork that I launched yesterday should be worth 1 billion. And so it's a really like, it just is an uneventful and uninteresting way to run a business. And I think it's a net detraction from the space because all the people who buy into these beta trade companies just all lose money. And so it just sucks capital out of the space and sucks into like the Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Miami apartments that are used as outlets for exit liquidity.
Or you end up renting for OnlyFans model of the day. Who knows? Good one. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't, that you were dying to talk about and I couldn't probe?
No, I think everything here has been really good. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I would say, there's a lot of very exciting announcements that are coming out from Lagrange over the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 months, 24 months. There's always some good announcements. We've got some big ones over the next 3 to 6. And so I would recommend anyone who's bullish on Lagrange and excited about Lagrange, please dive in and spend some time with our team.
And how can people know more about it? So do you have a website? Can they connect with you on LinkedIn? What's the path there?
Yeah, connect with us on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. Follow our company on Twitter. We have a Discord that lets you interact with our team. All the things you would hope for and like in a crypto community, we hopefully can offer.
Awesome. Ismael, this was really interesting, and I really like what you guys are building. And I'll absolutely continue to dig more into Lagrange and those. By the way, I have to ask: is the name Lagrange in honor of the ZZ Top song?
No, it's in honor of Lagrange, the mathematician, Joseph Louis Lagrange, the Italian mathematician who lived a lot of his life in France too, who invented a lot of important things like Lagrange interpolation, which is used in zero-knowledge proofs, and then Lagrange points as well, which is used, it's a point in space that sits between these celestial bodies where anything there rotates on its axis. And so it's an astronomer reference as well. But also lets us have the best ticker the world has ever seen. Now the foundation has the best ticker the world's ever seen, which is LA. Iconic.
Good one. Awesome. Thank you so much. And I hope to meet you in person at some point. Appreciate you.
That'll be wonderful. We'd love that. Thank you so much, Mauricio.
Catch us online. We're on Instagram at BlockDropsPodcast, on Twitter at BlockDropsPod or 0x Mauricio. We're on Lens at blockdrops.lens. We have a newsletter on LinkedIn. Write to us at blockdropspodcast@gmail.com. And you can listen to the Blockdrops podcast at Spotify, iColab, Faberbun Tech, and all of the other major streaming platforms. Yay! Shout out to Ismael for sharing so much of his journey with us, and also to Joe Hunt and Wahaj Khan for making this conversation possible. Don't forget to leave the ratings on your favorite player and check out the merch store at blockdropspodcast.xyz. This is all for today. Stay rare, stay weird. LFG.